Hello and good afternoon. My name is Audrey Powell, and I'm a junior here at Hillsdale College studying English. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker this afternoon, Mr. A.F. Branco. A.F. Branco is a nationally syndicated political cartoonist celebrated for his comically incorrect style. He served in the U.S. Army Military Police Corps, which offered him the opportunity to attend college on the GI Bill. He started cartooning as a hobby while working at a sawmill in Sedro-Woolley, Washington, and he has toured the Pacific Northwest as a professional musician with his band, Tony and the Tigers. Mr. Branco began cartooning seriously in 2010, motivated by concerns over radical leftist policies and culture. His work is syndicated by Creators Syndicate to newspapers and websites nationwide. He has been a guest on numerous outlets and shows, including Fox News, Newsmax, The Larry Elder Show, and The Lars Larson Show. He has published numerous books, including Make America Laugh Again, the comically incorrect cartoons of Antonio F. Branco, and Trump's Night Before Christmas. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Branco.
Need glasses. Thank you. Boy, who was that guy you were talking about? Yeah. I want to thank Hillsdale College for this gracious invitation. It's an extraordinary honor for me. I've admired Hillsdale for many years, its courage, its principles, and its unwavering pursuit of the truth. Being here today is a true privilege for me. And to all of you, I want to thank you for being here and allowing me to share my art with you. Now, this is where I'm supposed to say some sort of joke. But I'm not that good at telling jokes, and since my cartoons are kind of like jokes, I'll just move on. Never in a million years did I ever imagine me standing here on this stage, in this place, doing this. When they first asked me to speak, I was so deeply honored and excited, but that was right before the panic set in. I thought, wait a minute, public speaking? That's so far out of my comfort zone. My natural habitat is in my home, quiet home office / studio. Just me, a sketch pad, my computer, some strong coffee, and some news going on in the background, with that sacred mission of creating my next political cartoon masterpiece. Or as the left would call it, Nazi propaganda. So I did what any rational person would do when facing an unfamiliar challenge. I asked for help. I reached out to a friend of mine. You may know him as the black face of white supremacy, the one and only Larry Elder. He kindly helped me with this talk. So if you're not thrilled with this presentation today, please feel free to direct all complaints to his ex-account at Larry Elder. Larry, he was instrumental in getting me nationally syndicated. He kept bugging him and kept bugging him, and he's syndicated with Creator Syndicate. He says, you got to look at this guy, you got to check this guy, and after months, maybe a year or so, he persevered, and they finally signed me up. And I've been with him for quite a few years now. So thank you, Larry. I'm very grateful for that. Can I get a round of applause for Larry Elder? Following Larry's wise counsel, he said, I should say a little bit about myself for those who don't know who I am. So let's start from the beginning, where I'm from. I was born and raised for the first 17 years of my life in a tiny coastal town called Point Arena in Northern California. Population about 500. Back then, it was a sleepy little logging and fishing town, and this was long before before California became a communist state. My dad, God rest his soul, was a logger, very tough, very strict, with a very strong work ethic. My mom, thank the Lord, is still with us. She's 88 and a fiercely devoted Christian woman. So when I messed up as a kid, Dad would tan my hide and my mother would pray for me. So, and on occasion, my mom would pray that my dad would whip my hide. So not that often. That perfect blend of hickory and holiness is what made me who I am today, and later the cartoonist. As far as my cartooning career, it started early, and I mean very early. My grade school teachers would be happy to testify under oath that I spent more time doodling and drawing than I ever did on reading, writing, and heaven forbid, arithmetic. I have the grades to prove it. My mom and dad had been divorced for a few years, and in my junior year in high school, my mother moved us all, my brother, sister, and I, to Washington State to be closer to her immediate family, where I joined the military right out of high school. And after being honorably discharged from the Army Military Police Corps /EOD, jobs at that time were very hard to find. It was the Jimmy Carter years, so go figure. So I ended up in a sawmill working on the green chain. And believe it or not, that is where I developed my cartooning style, working in a sawmill. Now let me explain. After work, I would draw characters of my fellow workmates and the management in and around sawmill politics. And the next day I would secretly go post them in the lunchroom bulletin board. For the first couple of years, they didn't know who was drawing them because I signed them anonymously. Guess who? I even included myself in an unflattering way as a way to throw them off. I went from there to own my own graphics business for a while. I attended a couple of years of college on the GI Bill, and over the years I had a few other jobs before I landed in what I'm doing now, and I've been doing this for about 15 years. Since I'm much better expressing myself through my drawings than I am through speaking, how about we move on to some cartoons? You guys want to see some cartoons? Shut up and show some cartoons. I have quite a few here that I hope you enjoy, and I got to get my little clicker out here. Many that focus on the bias and hypocrisy of the legacy media and attempt to illustrate why they have lost the trust of the American people and brought about the success of today's alternative media, and how important their informative contribution is to a functioning constitutional representative republic. And notice I didn't say democracy. Two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. And I would be remiss if I failed to mention the one person I can truly credit the launching of my political cartooning career. Barack Hussein Obama. I present these older cartoons of Obama in an effort to illustrate where we've been and how we got to where we are today. Many of us knew who this guy was from the very beginning. His roots in the Muslim faith, his mentor, Frank Marshall Davis, a known communist, Reverend Wright, remember? God blank America? Him starting his presidential campaign in Bill Ayer's living room, a well-known Marxist, terrorist, weather underground person. Hanging out with communists and radicals in college and so on, much of which the media totally ignored at the time. But I believe he was instrumental in their attempt to destroy the country as we have known it. And we still remember the lies. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. The legacy media never held him accountable for any of those lies. And you could extrapolate that trait to almost everything he said and did over the years with the media's blessing. He's also been referred to as the food stamp president. And please understand, I'm not degrading people who are on government assistance, who actually need it. My mother was on it to help us raise us kids. She received food stamps and commodities, and that's government cheese for you young folks out there. And Medicaid. And she also worked part-time. But we can't ignore that this has been a widely abused system. And the farmers didn't like him much either. Sorry, I'm laughing at my own jokes. He put a lot of new regulations on farmers. His environmental policies and regulations were hideous at best. Remember when they gave Solyndra millions of dollars, then Solyndra, say that 5 times fast, that company donated millions of dollars to the Democrat Party. Then Solyndra turned around and went bankrupt shortly after. Kind of suspicious, isn't it? And of course, Obama's weak foreign policy that seemed to embolden our adversaries. Now, moving on to energy, he actually advocated for gas prices to skyrocket in an effort to move us towards clean energy. It was those policies that really screwed us at the pump. And some would say that all of those disastrous policies made him the worst president ever. Until Biden, that is. But Biden was just an extension of the Obama disaster, interrupted briefly by Trump's first term. Now, speaking of alternative media, one of the highest points of my career is when I found out Rush Limbaugh started publishing my cartoons in his monthly newsletter. Now, I received the Limbaugh letter. Did any of you ever receive the? All right, we got a few of them there. Being noticed by my conservative idol, Maha Rushy, was just awesome. I was elated. And we're still missing that powerful voice today. He and Glenn Beck were a huge inspiration to me at the time. I remember them both stating that everyone can do something to contribute to the conservative message, to the cause. So that led me to ask myself, what can I do? Well, I can draw. So I went to work and started posting on social media. And the rest is, I guess, history. The funny thing about this cartoon, Glenn Beck, he got a hold of me. He says, I want you to autograph one of these and send it to me with a print. I said, I will if you sign one for me and send it back. And I have this up on my wall with his signature. And I'd really hate to see where this country would be where they'd be today without their contribution. So let's move on to how the media covered for Hillary Clinton. Mumbles. I like it. You remember her? The one in charge of Bill Clinton's bimbo eruptions? Turned presidential candidate, rooting for women's rights. And although I do believe they tried to cheat in 2016, even the media and the cheat vote couldn't cover up the stench of her corruption. And just ask Kathleen Willey, Juanita Broderick, and Paula Jones. And I believe this is where Hillary would have ended up if she were a Republican. But of course, she had Comey and the media on her side to hide it and to back her up. Now, CNN, along with MSNBC, ABC, CBS, PBS, NPR, the New York Times, and Washington Post, with their liberal bias, are absolutely the reason we have a very vibrant alternative media today. Legacy media just isn't trusted anymore. Here's one of the few that President Trump shared over the years. We all remember the Russia hoax. And with absolutely no evidence, they kept perpetuating that hoax on the American people. And I felt this was happening, and still happening today. It's like the Democrats and the legacy media are reading off the same sheet of talking points. Now, in the beginning of social media, Facebook, Twitter, they gave everybody a microphone. They gave liberals a microphone. They gave independents a microphone. They gave conservatives a microphone, right and left. Everybody got a microphone. It's like the Oprah Winfrey of microphones. And when the left realized that the right was able to circumvent, go around the media elitist narratives, they ripped away everybody's or not everybody, they ripped away the right wing's microphones, the conservatives' microphones, faster than you could say censorship, all under the guise of community standards. But things began to change when Elon Musk bought Twitter and the creation of Truth Social, Getter, and along with podcasts like Victor David Hanson, War Room, Dan Bongino, Jesse Kelly, Megyn Kelly, Intellectual Frog Legs with Joe Dan Gorman, Daily Caller. All the while, legacy media continues to delegitimize themselves with their fake news and omitting the truth. And of course, we can't leave Google out of the equation. Remember when they all went as far as censoring top virologists and experts during COVID? It was despicable. And many times it's the media helping to create a crisis for ratings and setting narratives. Then turning around and blaming Trump, conservatives, for the very crisis that they themselves are creating. But through social media, Trump was able to find a way to fly above it all. And get his message out. Later, they banned him for Twitter. More on that in a bit. And President Trump has always been pretty good at playing the media and trolling them. Biden had a lot of help from the deep state and the legacy media as he stumbled and mumbled his way to the Oval Office. Now, on these cartoons, when I feature Biden, I like to include little things like the sippy cup, the empty thought bubble, Obama's logo on the teleprompter, kind of symbolize he's still part of the Obama administration. Do we have any Star Trek fans in the house? Oh, I see a few. Yeah, I see you. Any more? Is there anybody here that's heard of Star Trek? Okay. Now, I'm trying to illustrate, using absurdity, of course, on how the media works to slant what is obvious to most rational thinking people. And this is how I feel that, the debate monitors like to frame questions. Now, folks, I can't take credit for every single cartoon that I do, because sometimes these cartoons just draw themselves. Remember, you ain't black. Now, Jake Tapper tried framing Biden's mental decline as a right-wing conspiracy. He later tried to capitalize on Biden's mental decline as some sort of Biden White House cover-up, like he never even knew about it. And any objective person could see that Biden was in no mental shape to lead the most powerful country in the world. Jake Tapper was a part of that cover-up. Once again, illustrating the legacy media's slanted left-wing buffoonery. That's the biggest I've ever seen my cartoons. And this is the way I view President Trump's relationship with Democrats and their sycophant media, and how he stands up to them. Laughing at my own jokes again. I do a podcast with Joe Dan Gorman every Wednesday called Cartoons, Etc. And I'll laugh at my own jokes, and I'll say that, like I said, that is laughing at my own jokes again. He said, well, somebody's got to. And I was called a racist for this next cartoon, but of course they call all of my cartoons racist, so there's no big surprise. But the blackface of white supremacy, Larry Elder loved it and shared the heck out of this. He's still sharing it. You can go on, it's probably his Twitter page, and he's probably shared it again. And I did this back in, 2014. Wow, that's a few years ago. But I'm trying to demonstrate here how the Democrat Party used the black community to gain power, but do nothing to improve their situation between elections. But I think with the GOP and Trump, that's starting to change a little bit. And what would a conservative cartoon presentation be without featuring Pocahontas? Thank you. Some say she's a few feathers short of a headdress, that's for sure. And I have some advice for Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas. Women who live in glass teepees should not throw stone. Now, a little something on Behar of The View. I hate to do this to you. Not many positive things could you say about Sharia law, but here's one way to find joy in it. And we can't leave out Shifty Schiff. No. He had a big part to play in the impeachment hoaxes, and he would do it again if he had the chance. Let's not give him that chance. 2026, baby. You guys fired up for 2026? Now, getting back to the legacy media and why most people don't trust them anymore, it's so obvious whose side they're on. They're not the unbiased referees of political discourse they like to pretend they are. And you can see the contrast here. One side is when they're covering Obama, and the other side is when they're covering Trump. Not only does President Trump have to continuously wrestle with the media and the Democrats, too often he has to deal with those in his own party. And I want to pay tribute to two very influential people that have helped substantially advance alternative media to the level that it is today, and who are no longer with us. Democrats and the media's violent rhetoric does play a large part in what I believe emboldens someone to want to assassinate a political figure. And I don't see the legacy media changing anytime soon, given recent events. But thankfully, we now have a strong alternative media going to help balance some of the left's propaganda. And finally, you can put lipstick on a donkey, but it's still a donkey. I didn't use the word donkey. And I would like to close with this. Despite the left-wing, elitist, Marxist, legacy media, I think it's up to you, and it's up to me, and it's up to all of us to keep that torch of truth burning. And I want to thank Hillsdale College for doing just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Branco. We now have time for Q&A. If you have a question, please make your way to a microphone. Student questions will be given preference.
Hi, thank you for speaking today. I'm an art major, and the idea of the role in AI in art is quite a popular topic here, as you can imagine. And so what I wanted to ask you is, as a professional artist, how do you see the role of AI playing its way into your work, into contemporary art, and specifically into political cartoons?
Well, that is a big problem. And a lot of things have changed since I started doing it. You have these memes now that are just a picture with words. So everybody can kind of be a cartoonist. And for me, it's always been about getting the message out. Any way we can get the message out. So I don't put those down, because I love them too. I love some of the memes and I share them. And AI, if it spreads our message, fine. What I don't like about AI is when they take a cartoonist's work and totally eviscerate it. AI can even make it. I'll give you an example. The other day, I did a cartoon of, I don't know if anybody's seen it, but it had Waltz, it had A.G. Ellison and Elhan Omar and Mayor Fry in Minnesota, and they all had their hand in a cookie jar that said Somali fraud, pointing and screaming that ICE, like ICE was the problem. Well, somebody took that cartoon, ran it through AFI or AI, and AI did a great job. It made it even better. You know, it looked like an artistic painting. And I got a hold of my creator syndicate and told them about it, sent them the picture, and I guess they're on it. They're going to try and do something about it, but there's so much of it going on, it's hard to do. But AI is a problem, I think, for cartoonists. I don't know where that's going to put us in the next few years. So thank you for the question. Did I answer it okay? Yeah, okay.
Thank you for your talk and all of the cartoons. They went back quite a ways, I think to 2012, 2011, and then surely some before then too. So my question is, over the years, have you found legacy media getting better or worse, i.e. easier to critique or harder to critique? And do you see there as being any hope?
I think my personal opinion, and that's all it is, cartoonist opinion, who knows, But I see the media, and people are more educated now because of alternative media. So now they're able to pick things apart a little bit. They see it. Like Rush Limbaugh used to have a saying, he says, I can read the stitches on a fastball. And so a lot of people are able to read those stitches when the media comes out and says something that isn't true, or they omit information that isn't, that's there, but they aren't covering it. You have to go somewhere to get in-depth coverage of something that they should be doing, like the Somali fraud. Some kid with a microphone and a camera did that, So where was the media with all? They should have been doing that. So, I answer your question, okay?
Hi, Mr. Branco. I know that you are nationally syndicated through Creators Syndicate. Does that, in general, are you published in legacy mainstream media outlets that are local outlets as well, or do you just end up in conservative papers? Is your mouthpiece loud enough that you can critique the liberal media from within?
I'm sorry, I couldn't. I'm old. You gotta.
Can you critique the liberal media from within using your national syndicated mouthpiece in liberal papers as well as conservative papers?
I don't think very many liberal papers are going to like me, And you know what? I'm okay with that. So creators will give my cartoons or sell my cartoons to any establishment that wants them. And there's quite a few newspapers across the country that use them. And I don't know whether they're liberal or not. Some of them have a tendency to be liberal, but they'll put a few of my cartoons or another conservative cartoon artist in there. Thank you.
Hi, sir. Thank you so much for coming out. This was fantastic. My question for you is whether there have been groups or entities or particular people where you have felt like pulling your punches when satirizing them because of backlash or the many things you're going to face when going after those people.
I've never been really accused of pulling punches. And the only time you'll find me pulling a punch is if it has to do with death. Children, gun shootings. I'll lay off that. But it's not because of politics. I think it's just decency. Let an issue kind of fade away and find an angle that supports my views. And so in that regard, I'll pull punches. Was there anything else that you were referring to, or? Okay.
So, as something of a professional, high-quality meme maker yourself, you've probably heard the saying, "the left can't meme." And, well, why would you think this is the case? Or do you agree with it or disagree with it?
I guess I kind of disagree with it because there's been some pretty funny left-wing cartoonists out there. And this is, of course, I am biased, I'm conservative. And it seems that conservatives tend to lean on truth, or what they perceive to be truth, and there has to be an element of truth in every cartoon. You can exaggerate it, you can kind of emphasize certain aspects of it, but there has to be an element of truth. And a lot of times with liberal cartoonists, not all of them, they're just not true. They think they are. It's usually based on the hype that they've promoted, hype that they've created. And then they do a cartoon about it and exaggerate that hype. All of my cartoons, I try to have an element of truth. And I don't see that a lot on the left. Personal opinion.
Thank you. You do beautiful work.
Well, thank you.
Could you talk a little bit about the process you use and the media and how you go about start to finish? Technically, how you do it?
Sure. I used to draw on paper, and then I would scan it into a scanner, and after I've erased all the pencil marks and all that, and I would scan it in, and I would put it into my Corel Draw photo paint, and I would color it, add some shading, take out stuff I didn't really like. But now I draw on a Wacom tablet, and it just cuts out probably about half hour of the process, And from there, I publish it, make sure that, it takes me about 4 or 5 hours to do a cartoon and get it out. So I can really only do probably one a day. Sometimes I can squeeze out 2 if I work a long hour, long day. But the idea is to come up with the idea, seize on it. Now, because of everything going on, there's so many ideas. There's so many things happening. You gotta sit back and go, I don't even know where to start, So, aside from running around in my backyard naked trying to come up with an idea, it's just, and you don't want to see that, I guarantee you. So, did you have a follow-up?
Do you have a book available of your cartoons?
Actually, I've had 3 books out. One was done by a publisher, and then they went out of business. Well, that doesn't look good, does it? But caveat to that, they did sell all my books. So before they did, and then I self-published a couple, and those sold out. And I'm trying to work on a deal, trying to figure out a way to get another book out. You bet.
I love self-deprecating humor, and this question was inspired by one of the students who asked about, so my question, let me explain the context. Since about 1978, I loved listening to Prairie Home Companion, and the Prairie Home Companion producer is a very liberal guy, and he did a very good job of satirizing people like Ronald Reagan. And when Obama became president, he was incapable of stepping on the other side and making anything funny about his own views. So this is my question. I love your stuff up here very much. I didn't see any self-deprecating. Is there ever an occasion when conservatives can laugh at themselves?
Well, my wife takes care of the self-deprecating in my case. So, no, I'm a conservative. And I'm somewhat, and how I got into drawing these cartoons was, I was angry, not angry, but upset, disturbed. Obama came into office, and it's like he was trying to transform America just like he said he would. And it was my way of venting. And so you can kind of say I'm an activist cartoonist. I try to find those humorous, funny things. And I talked to a guy, you guys know him, Michael Ramirez is a cartoonist, when I just first started. And I asked him for some advice for cartoons, for a struggling up-and-coming cartoonist. And I think I just started. And he answered me back, and when I wrote him, he said, you need to make one point, and you need to sharpen it. And Michael Ramirez, we don't agree on everything. I'm a little bit more conservative-minded, probably. But that was probably the best advice I'd ever received. Because some cartoonists will throw this over here, and they'll throw some stuff over here, and you don't know where the point is. He said, make one single point and sharpen it. Make it about one point. Because people don't have a very large attention span. And when they read a cartoon, they want to get it right away as fast as possible. And if you start throwing little things in there, and then they're looking over here, and they say, well, you don't want to confuse them with too much information.
Hi, thank you for being here. I wanted to ask you about. Do you want me to hold this? Okay. I wanted you to ask you about what you thought about the future of the conservative media space, because as you've mentioned, a lot of things have been uncovered recently by more independent, smaller journalists. I was wondering what you thought conservative media would become like as it's becoming more divided with a lot of commentators and just a lot more taking sides. If you think that these more established conservative media companies will be able to maintain their, their hold on the conservative media space, or do you think it's going to, transform into smaller, more independent journalists? And kind of related / maybe a follow-up is that if it is a world of like smaller independent journalists. Do you think that that would be because of the political atmosphere, or do you think it would be because of like people's individual access to technology and ability to get their voices out?
Mark Halpern was here last night. How many people got to see Mark Halpern? And he eloquently, talked about that a lot. As a cartoonist, as a conservative cartoonist, my job is to advocate for conservatives, find that issue that promotes what I believe in, my values. As far as where the media is going, they have a long way to go before they build that trust back. And, I think conservative media, they're just making up for lost time, I think. And people are still getting news in a wide range, X, Facebook. So when it comes back around, I think, and hopefully, that it all levels out at some point. People have access to so many. But I see your point, because it seems like people are going to their corners and they're not listening to each other. And I think Mark Halpern had a good point about trying to bring those two people together, or those two organizations together, and make something, create something that's, so people aren't yelling at each other. They're conversing on a level playing field and actually talking with each other instead of at each other. And I'm sorry that didn't answer your question, probably as effective, but that's my perspective.
Hi, Mr. Branco. So I'm a big fan of irreverent and provocative humor, but here in this cartoon you have projected up here, you're treating a very serious and tragic subject in your medium, which tends to be jocular and humorous. Can you explain your rationale for treating something so tragic in a cartoon? Thank you.
Not all cartoons are meant to be humorous, and not all of my cartoons are humorous. Sometimes they're just designed to make a point. And this particular cartoon wasn't intended to be humorous. It was to make a point. Did everybody get that point? Thank you.
Thank you. Your cartoons are wonderful. I think that they help us conservatives get through some of the tough things we're seeing today. But on a different track, I'm wondering, what do you think of the Babylon Bee?
Love the Babylon Bee. Love them. Yeah. I see so many. They know how to sit down and really works out some humor. And again, they're using pictures, not much in the way of drawing. Cartooning is a little bit different than picture memes, but they have some great headlines. So.
Thank you for coming today. So 2 quick questions. The first one has to do maybe a little bit with the pulling the punches earlier. I was wondering, so many people in the conservative movement who do journalism get death threats. And I was wondering if you have to deal with that a lot and if that affects how you do things. I get the impression it doesn't. And then the last curiosity question I have is, what happened at the sawmill when they found out it was you?
Oh, that's an awesome question. Well, at the sawmill, they actually hired a guy from Chicago to check all the applications to see whose handwriting was on them. They flew him in, he went through every application, and they couldn't find him. And I said, phew. And the manager at the time, he wasn't too flattered with a couple of the cartoons, but then we had a new manager, and he loved him, and my foreman loved him, and this organization I worked for at the time, and I was really young, they had like 25 sawmills. So the foreman would come in, grab the cartoon off the bulletin board, and he'd go into the office and fax it out to all 25. All 25, and then they would copy it, and then they would copy it, and it was a bunch of copy. They were all over. So, and I didn't do it for money. I just did it for the pure joy of it. But they were happy when they found out. They couldn't believe it. They just, you? You're an idiot. So.
All right, please join me in thanking Mr. Branco.
Thank you. Thank you very much.